Come on in, welcome to my home. Today we are going to talk about my dream house. Well, if you've seen the video where I talk about my bookcase, if you haven't clicked that card, I talk about the fact that I am an AutoCAD user and I've sort of been designing my dream house for like, I don't know, 20 some years, probably longer. But I have a rough idea of what kind of house that I'd want to build if I were living alone and had a lot of money. And by a lot of money, I mean a lot of money, because the house itself is, by any standards, huge. It is 4,111 square, it's not. It's 4,011 square feet of heated space. That is a lot of heated space. I realize that. However, this also is the house where I would do just about everything. Because let's face it, I work from home, so it would also be my office, it would also be my recreation space. I'm one of these people who rarely ever leaves the house. But let's talk about this house from the beginning. Now the images that you're going to see are not the highest quality, simply because, well, I'm using a super old version of AutoCAD, so it's going to be a 2D image. And also, if you want to see the 3D image of it, I can try to learn how to use Blender or how to use one of the 3D modeling programs, SketchUp I've been working on. But right now you can get a rough idea of what it is that I want and why I want it, because that's the important part. A lot of people look at their dream house and they go room by room by saying, well, I want to have 3 bedrooms, which I do want. I want a laundry room, an office, living room, dining room, kitchen all together, 2 bathrooms, and then a greenhouse, which realistically isn't bad, but there are also some other things that I want, and some other things which had to happen simply because of the way that I live. One of the things that I would definitely do is looking at the front of the house. The front of my house would face north. And on this image you can see that I have 2 single car garages that are actually pretty darn big. They are about 18 feet apiece wide and 24 feet deep. Those would be because on one side, most likely the left-hand side, I would have my car. The right-hand side would be some sort of woodworking shop, because those are some things that I need to do. And I would only have 1 vehicle. That's realistically all that I want. But the interesting part about this is everything in my house would enter from a single access point if you were coming from the front. From the front you would enter into a foyer, or foyer, depending upon where you are, and that would have 2 closets, probably a guest closet and a closet for my stuff. In those closets would be a place for me to hang up my coats. Then on the other side of the doors from the garages would be benches. Benches with coat hooks above it so that way I could take off my shoes, hang up the coats that I always use, and then enter into the main part of the house. That would have double doors so that I could close that off and leave the outside out. That's one of the main things, is that I want a house that then separates me from the rest of the world once I come in. I can just turn off the rest of the world once I enter into from my foyer. The house is based off of a single access point, which is the main hallway. It is a fairly wide hallway, at about 6 feet wide. In that hallway there would be all sorts of storage closets, and off that hallway would come just about every room. The first room on your right would be my office. There is a reason that it's even on the right, because the right would face west. So that would mean that the sun would come into my office in the evening or afternoon. The reason for this is I'm a morning person. I will tell you this right away. So by the time the afternoon sun would come in through my office, in through those doors, it would be time for me to probably no longer be in the office. Now, one of the interesting things about this is it is a single level home. So 1 story. It would be built on a slab foundation, which would be in concrete foundation, simply because I like the idea of being able to go from my car, from the house, straight in on 1 level. I do like the 1 level. And then across the hall from that would be my huge laundry room slash craft room slash dog room, because I'm a dog person. I would have a dog. And in that, I would include a space for a dog bath or a dog shower, so that way I can wash my dog, because even now, my dog, when she needs washed, she needs washed. But I would have a shower which would be slightly raised up, so that way I wouldn't have to be on my hands and knees trying to wash the dog. I could do it at a comfortable level. Also in that room, I would have a huge 8 by 4 foot table for laundry or crafts or whatever else I wanted to do on that. This would be the spot where I could do all of these things. Now, a lot of people are looking at this plan going, well, I can see from this plan that going from your garage to your kitchen is quite a hike. And it is. I'll admit that. It is quite a hike. However, it's worth the hike because realistically, I only get groceries about once a week. I still only get groceries once a week. So once a week, I would be making that hike with groceries, and I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely 100% okay with this. I think the days of worrying about going from your car to the kitchen are sort of over unless you are doing this every day. And I'm not doing these things every day. But let's get back to the making sense of going forward. Now, you'll notice that from my laundry room, there are doors which lead into the hallway, which would be my main bedroom hallway. It would have its own hallway, off of which would be 2 closets, and then a bathroom with a separate shower and tub. And then also in that hallway would be a vanity area, so that way it's separate and everything. It would be really nice. Then the main part of the bedroom would of course be the sleeping area. The sleeping area is made so that I could face my bed towards the hallway, which faces in the entranceway, or I could put it against the wall, which would face the windows, because the windows would face east. That's where all the light and everything would come in the morning, and as I said, I'm a morning person. I get up with the sunrise, so it would be really nice to have morning sunlight in that bedroom. Now, going back to the hallway, you will notice that there is a lot of storage in that hallway, and there's a good reason for that. Originally, I looked at the hallway going, I should have my utility closet, which would house vacuum cleaners, mops, those sort of things. Perfect, no problem. But then I was going to put in a wet bar with a place where I could make wine, and I was like, wait, I don't drink wine. I don't drink beer. Why would I put in a wet bar? And it was one of those things where the thought of having this really cool looking wet bar would be great. However, I don't need it. That's not the kind of person I am. What I'd rather have is a spot for my robot vacuum, because yes, I would have a robot vacuum which would be programmed to every day go out and vacuum up a certain part of the house and make it clean. So I thought that was more important than having a wet bar, and then I could have lots and lots of storage space so that I could store all of my holiday decorations. I could store all of my things that I'd want to get access to and make it really easy. Across from that would be the 2 guest bedrooms. Now, this is where this gets really interesting. I'm a person who would, since I'm living by myself, my guest bedrooms, instead of having guest beds, I would have 2 sleeper sofas. There's a reason for this. Guess what I do for a living? I do YouTube. So I would make those sleeper sofas so that they could easily be a background for all of these videos where I do these talking heads thing. I wouldn't have to do this in my office, because my office would most likely have bookcases and computers and all those fun, wonderful things, and they'd be more soundproof, versus right now I am working in a room which is also the area where my kitchen is right over there. You can hear the refrigerator. Without turning off my refrigerator, there is nothing I can do about that. So that's its own issue. That also gives me a chance to get things like in the walk-in closet. Each room would have its own walk-in closet. I could have a Peloton bike, which I really want to get, or possibly a movable treadmill. It would give me space so that I can do yoga in the mornings and that sort of thing without dedicating a bed space to something that I'm never going to use unless I have guests. No, that's always fun. Going further back out into that main hallway down the hall to the left would be just simply a storage room. You're wondering why I would have such a large storage closet? Well, once again, I have lots of decorations. I have lots of stuff I like to store. It'd be a great place to store it without it being in my garage, without it being in a really weird place. It would be right there. And I could store things that I'd want to get out. I could store things that you have without having to put it in weird spots. Right across from that would be the centralized furnace and water heater. Right there, where it could be in a spot where it's sort of in the middle of the house so that the heat could then be, it would be run through the ceiling, and the vents would be in the ceiling, directed down, probably in front of the windows. It would give me a chance to have the heater there, the furnace there, the water heater there, so if somebody had to come work on that, it would be great. Now, going into the main part of the house, it runs across the back of the house. To the left, you have a living room, which would have, of course, have a spot for my TV. It would have a door which would lead outside. This is really important. I also thought about this for a long time. On the left-hand side of the house would be the more formal side. So right outside that door would probably be more formal gardens with flowers and those sort of things. Then right in front, right beside that, of course, would be the dining room, which has another huge sliding glass door, which would lead out onto a patio. In that spot, I haven't really decided, simply because I am still toying with the idea of possibly putting a fireplace in that area and reducing the size of that sliding glass door. Would you put in a fireplace? Because I kept thinking about the fact, would I really use a fireplace? Am I that person? Am I the person who would want to then have to haul in wood for a fireplace? Because I would not have a gas fireplace, simply because I'd want it to be more off the grid. And we're going to get back to that, so put a pin in the off the grid part. On the other side of the dining room, of course, would be the kitchen. The kitchen is set up because, guess what? Since I do YouTube videos, I have it sort of differently than what you see most kitchens. In most kitchens, you would have the range or the oven up against the wall so that your back would be towards everything. However, we don't live like that anymore. We really don't live where the fact where we're washing dishes more than we're cooking. We're not. So I would have a drop-in range put in there so that I could then film. Anytime I did a cooking video, I could film it right there. Then behind me would be the sink with a dishwasher, a refrigerator, and freezer all there together, which would be great. But there'd also be another room. That other room would be my pantry. The pantry would be where I'd store all of my dry goods, all of the things, you know, the boxes of cereal, that sort of thing. And included with that, I would also have an above-ground root cellar. Just off the pantry, it's right behind the water heater and the furnace. It'd be a spot where I could keep it much cooler and store potatoes and onions and those sort of things. This would be a great spot to have all the harvest from a garden, which would be on the right-hand side of the yard, because the right-hand side would be more of the working side. This is the side where those guest bedrooms are, the guest bath is, the office is. It would all face more towards that side. So I think that makes sense. Then off the kitchen, of course, would be a lovely greenhouse where I could have my herbs. I could then grow, let's say, tomatoes in the winter time, lettuce. Now in that spot, I would also have a sink, which would be really important simply because I wouldn't have to bring all of the things that you're doing your potting, that sort of stuff there. Wouldn't have to bring it inside the house, and so I wouldn't. I would have a sink right there. I'd probably also use some sort of drip irrigation system so I could then water the plants that way. Make it really easy. Now, remember I said I would do I would try to get off the grid? Well, I would use solar panels, but if you look at the house, you will distinctly notice that the house is set up so that the roof line actually runs north and south, which means that the mass part of the roof would be east and west. I would put in a fence by the garage, which would run across that side, which would run across both sides. That's where I'd put my solar panels, so that way I could easily work on the solar panels if I needed to. They would be up high enough, they'd be a block, they'd be part of the fence, because I'd have to have a fenced in spot, because I know my dog would want to run off if I didn't have a fenced in area for her. So that would be one of the things. But it's one of those houses where, like I said, this is a developing thing. I have been working on this off and on for many, many years, and I absolutely love the idea of someday getting enough money to build this house, doing the changes on it before I even go. But like I said, the main part of this is trying to figure out what I wanted in a house. I knew I had to have a craft area because I like to do that. I knew that I wanted to have food storage. I knew that I wanted tons and tons of storage throughout my house. Each bedroom has a walk-in closet. Does it need a walk-in closet? Well, no, probably not, because I'm a single person who would only have guests there, but it'd be a great place for me to store stuff. Just like you're probably thinking I'd store my cameras and everything in the closets in the bedroom. I wouldn't. I would store all the stuff for my YouTube actually in that main hallway, so I could film wherever I wanted to in the house by just going to one of the storage closets and getting it. That single access is one of the ways where I could make my house so easy to live in. And then I would also do things like I'd probably clad it in cement, or what's it called? Is it a concrete? I think it's a cement cladding. It would not be wood cladding. It'd be something more fireproof. My roof would probably be tin or a metal roof, so that way, you know, it's easier to deal with. And it'd probably be white. Yeah. Would I put shutters on my house? Probably not. Nope. You will notice that there are no windows facing north. The reason for that is because that faces the street. I really want to, when I'm in my house, think of it as like, you know how Disney makes it so that when you go to Disney and you're in one of the parks, it feels like you're in a whole nother world? That's how I want to design my house. So that when I'm in my house, the outside world is someplace else, and that central foyer is how I get in and out, and that's where the break of reality is? I don't know. Well, there you go. This is what my dream house is looking like so far. If you're interested in me doing a 3D rendering of the house, let me know down in the comments. If you have ideas and you'd like me talk more detail room by room, let me know down in the comments, because I can then do the 3D rendering, which will give you a much better view of what the house would look like and how it would work. This is what I love to do during the day, which is why my office would be so big, so that way I can be in my office and draw these things and have tables to work on and all those fun things. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you tell me what your house looked like, because I'd also want to have some acreage. Yeah, in case you're wondering, yes, I have thought about the landscaping and what I would do with the landscaping, but that's a whole nother video, and this one has been long enough. Well, I'd love to hear from you what you thought about this and what your house would be like. At this time, I'd like to thank my patrons. If you are interested in joining Patreon and getting these videos ahead of time, and also, it's possible, if we got enough patrons, I would have enough money to actually build this house, to actually go through and have it built and live in this dream house that I think would work perfectly for the lifestyle that I have in the way that I would want it to work. So if you're interested in seeing that happen, hey, join Patreon. It would be a lot of fun, so that someday we could build this house together. Let me know what you thought about this, and I hope I get to see you again the next time you stop by.